Once upon a time in a quiet downtown café, the morning light streamed weakly through foggy windows, illuminating the steam that curled from freshly brewed coffee and the worn wooden tables that lined the walls. At one of those tables sat Daniel Bradford, a man whose shoes were polished to a shine but whose eyes carried a weight no amount of wealth could ever lift, because Daniel, a widowed CEO and self-made millionaire who had built one of the most successful healthcare technology companies in Chicago, had lost the one person who truly mattered in his life, his beloved wife, Emma, whose laughter had once filled every empty corner of his heart, whose unwavering belief in kindness had been his compass through all hardships, and whose absence now hung over him like an unending storm that no success, no accolade, no number in a ledger could ever calm. Daniel stared into his coffee, black and bitter, much like the thoughts that swirled in his mind, wondering if purpose could ever return to him after such loss, until a faint voice broke the silence, a voice soft yet earnest, that asked, "Sir, may I sit here?" It came from a little girl, barely 8 years old, wearing a faded pink dress and clutching a small, worn teddy bear that seemed too big for her slight frame, her eyes wide with a mixture of exhaustion and hope. And in that moment Daniel looked up, startled, because there was something different about her, a spark that reminded him of the joy he had lost. She looked at him with a fragile yet courageous smile and explained that her name was Lily, and she was sick. She had been waiting for her mother to come back from the hospital, but her mother was delayed, so Lily had walked to the cafe hoping someone kind might let her sit beside them while she waited, and that simple question, "Can I sit here?" penetrated deeper into Daniel's heart than any business negotiation ever had, because in her voice he heard vulnerability calling for compassion, and in her eyes he saw not just a child alone, but a soul that deserved to be seen and comforted. So without hesitation Daniel gestured to the seat across from him, offering a gentle, "Of course," and in that instant, something inside him stirred. A warmth that had long been dormant began to flicker, not because of his success or the millions in his bank account, but because of a child's courage to ask for connection, even in the face of fear. Lily spoke of how her days had been filled with doctor visits and treatments, how she missed playing outside and chasing butterflies, and how the world seemed bigger and lonelier every time her mother wasn't near. And Daniel listened, truly listened, not as a CEO listening to another story, not as a man seeking distraction, but as a human being rediscovering empathy he thought he had lost forever. And as he watched Lily's tiny hands tremble slightly with each breath, he remembered that life's true value was never measured in profits or charts, but in moments of shared humanity, in the courage it takes to reach out when you're scared, and in the peace that comes from simply being present for someone else. Time seemed to slow as they talked, other patrons fading into the background, the cafe's hum turning into a distant echo, and Daniel found himself sharing pieces of his own story he had locked away, of love, of loss, of the hollow ache that success couldn't fill. And Lily responded with an innocence and wisdom that seemed far beyond her years, reminding him that bravery isn't reserved for the strong, but for those who dare to hope when the world feels heavy. And in her presence Daniel felt a shift, a gentle pulling back from the edge of despair, because her resilience offered him a mirror, reflecting the compassion he once knew and the possibility that kindness could mend even the deepest fractures of the heart. Hours passed and the sun climbed higher in the sky, but they remained lost in conversation, in laughter that bubbled up unexpectedly, in shared stories of favorite animals and dreams of adventure, until Lily's mother finally arrived, breathless, apologetic, her eyes filled with relief at finding her daughter safe and smiling. And as Lily ran into her arms Daniel watched them embrace, a profound sense of gratitude washing over him, for this chance encounter had reminded him that every human life, no matter how small or overlooked, carries a universe of hopes and fears, and that reaching out to another person can be the very thing that heals your own wounds. Lily's mother thanked Daniel with tears in her eyes, her voice trembling as she spoke of how hard life had been, how uncertain their future might look, but Daniel only shook his head with a gentle smile, because he now understood that what truly mattered wasn't what he could give, but that he had the capacity to care, and that in itself was precious beyond measure. As they walked away, Lily turning back once to wave with a grin that lit up the room, Daniel felt a lightness he hadn't known in years, and he realized that life had given him a new purpose, to live not merely for achievement, but to be present, to listen, to uplift, to extend kindness without expecting anything in return, because real wealth lies in the connections we nurture and the difference we make in another person's world. And so Daniel left the cafe that day a changed man, inspired to use his resources, his influence, and his passion to help those in need, especially children like Lily whose spirits shone brightly despite life's trials. And this transformation didn't come from a boardroom or a business plan, but from a simple request, "Can I sit here?" That carried with it a lesson every one of us needs to remember, that compassion has the power to transform lives, that sometimes hope comes in the smallest voices, and that every act of kindness ripples outward in ways we may never fully see. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the importance of empathy, courage, and human connection, Then imagine the many more inspiring stories waiting to be told right here on this channel, so don't forget to hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and join our community where we share heart-touching tales that uplift your spirit, challenge your perspective, and bring light into your day, because your support helps us create more powerful content like this, and together we can spread more hope, more positivity, and more reasons to believe in the goodness of humanity. Thank you for watching, and remember, every great story begins with an open heart.